Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, before I lose my voice, we're going to get into cloud-enabled management issues. Okay, so again, like I remind you, there's a course, there's a document, there's a lot more information. So what I'm going to do, for the sake of time, is kind of squish it down to the important points. Okay, we're not going to go through the entire process of every troubleshooting step, but you'll get something out of this just by looking at some of the resolutions. All right, so cloud-enabled management issues. So this can range from things where agents aren't registering to task servers through the cloud. We've got problems where we implemented the cloud-enabled management, but the internet gateway is not passing communications, right? And it could be even just losing connection between the NS and the internet gateway. Several different parts of it can be affected, but your testing approach is generally this. Validate the SEM infrastructure first. Make sure that all the components are working properly, right? If you have internet sites with defined internet site servers or internal site servers, check those. Check the SEM agent site. That is the basic thing you start with. That's the first website you create when you implement cloud-enabled management. Make sure that's up and running, okay? And check all the components. Then move to the agent and see if it's on that side and adjust any of it as applicable. All right, so we're not going to worry about that. This is just basically setting up the story. The story is that we've got a SEM implementation that has everything configured, but it's all self-signed. So this depends basically on self-signed configurations. We're not going to get into PKI or any public certificates and so on, because it's pretty much the same troubleshooting steps. All right, so the first thing to check is the infrastructure. You're going to check the website settings. So this is you can see by the illustration here, this is our semantic agent site for cloud-enabled management. Make sure that everything's right in it. Make sure that the FQDN name is grayed out. That means it's installed. Ensure that it's not set to port 443. You know, if you haven't implemented cloud-enabled management since 7.5, you might have used 443 back in the day. Make sure it's at 4726 or, of course, a configured port, okay, or a custom port. All right, the IIS manager, go in there, take a look at the name. Make sure the name of the configuration at the top matches the configuration name, the site inside of IIS, right? There have been instances where you originally installed the cloud-enabled management site, and it was named Site 1. And then you go into your configuration in IIS, it's called Site 2. Well, how does that happen? Well, somebody uninstalled it and reinstalled it, but didn't get rid of the IIS website reference. Okay, so make sure everything's configured identically as the site settings are set. And of course, check Windows firewalls, the firewall rules. You need to have 4726 from the notification server to the internet gateway. Okay, so a lot of these are obvious, but you know, Tomas can tell you, he's gone to many sites that have asked these questions. It's like, well, it's 4722, like you didn't set it right. Or you have a firewall rule that stops any communication between the agent and the internet gateway. So I would say it's going to be something stupid, more than likely. It's going to be just one little thing you missed, and it's not going to be complicated. It's not going to be going in and changing code and having to change the database or anything like that. It is going to be a setting. Okay, now a lot of this applies, of course, to 8.1 today. It applies to 8.5 today, but obviously in RU1, we may have to rewrite this for the latest version of the internet gateway, okay, not using Apache. All right, so check the configuration. And it's really quick to do because everything's right in front of you. Open the gateway, internet gateway manager and go through the tabs. Basically check every setting down the line. Check the general settings, check the server settings, check the thumbprint, and this is on both sides. Go into your internet gateway configuration, go into your policies on the notification server, make sure the thumbprints match. Make sure everything is the same, okay? Usually when there's a mismatch, you'll know it right away. There's no communication whatsoever. Some of the indicators in the Internet Gateway Manager will go red, little square box that's indicated. Ensure that the incoming TCP port is set to 443. Commonly we see it set to 4726 because your brain just thinks, oh, they use that for that port. No, any agent coming in and talking to it must be on 443 or a defined port that you choose. Okay, so go into the logs. The logs are available in the Internet Gateway Manager, and it actually includes the Apache information also. So today, you can see all the Apache errors, a revoked certificate, something's not right, a service isn't running, as well as any agent logs if you happen to have installed an agent, a semantic management agent on your Internet Gateway. Okay, there's also a document, the Cloud Enabled Management White Paper, very useful. It has been upgraded for 8.5, and I believe the document, that link should be the same. All right, so you've checked your infrastructure and made sure that on both sides of the notification server, Cloud Enabled Management configuration is right, as well as on the Internet Gateway. Usually, at this point, you probably have solved your communication issues, but when we get into the infrastructure, in the console itself, we have to check a couple of things. So on the console, look at your desired site servers. If you're having problems with packages transversing over through the internet, you're going to be checking your site settings, right? So checking your package server settings, ensuring that the site servers you expect to be in the default internet site is actually there. So the biggest complaint is, like, not getting my packages, what the heck's going on? Well, you didn't put any site servers inside of the default internet site, right? Okay, so check the standard configurations and policies that you would normally do for a package server that's on the intranet inside. Okay, make sure that you have HTTPS enabled. That's part of the basic configuration of Cloud Enabled Management. You must have HTTPS, period, end of story, right? So that should be obvious. Use force overwrite HTTPS bindings if you needed to, especially if you're coming from an upgrade. So if you have an 8.0 server and you did the Cloud Enabled Management and the new ports in 8.1 are supported as 4726, this will overwrite any of the old bindings once you upgrade to 8.1 or 8.5. All right, so that's on the notification server. On the actual site server itself, ensure that your HTTPS code bases are enabled. If there's a secondary policy for that specific site server, make sure that's enabled, HTTPS code bases. Make sure all your packages are ready. So look at the agent on your internet site server and make sure that it reflects exactly what the policy is. So if you've enabled HTTPS, make sure that it says it right in the bottom of the agent policy under the package server tab. Okay, and this would also apply to just standard package server troubleshooting, right? Anything that happens here when it's out on the internet and it's cloud enabled, it's the same behavior whether it's intranet or internet, either way. Okay, so this is the most obvious one. Tomas taught me this. Most of the places you go to, he would get the situation where there is no communication between the agent and the NS through the internet gateway. And the first question he'd ask is, did you ping it? Did you do a telnet? Did you do this? These are the three things that everybody in this room should know if you want to check that something's up. So we've had cases where they send us logs and everything. It's like, all right, but did you ping it? So this is one I'd really like to enforce. In all connectivity scenarios, ping it, NS lookup it if you have to, and telnet, right? These are your friends. Telnet's obviously going to give you the assurance that the port is open, that there is no firewall blocks or anything like that. NS lookup will help you with the defined name, and ping is pretty obvious, right? If ping is turned on in the network, ping is turned on in the network, you should be able to ping between the two places. Okay, so I would do this first before anything, really. Just check the communication between them. Okay, so if it's not the infrastructure, if it's not basic network communication and so on, and you've eliminated that, then you hit the agent. You start looking at the agent as possibly the problem. Now, the agent can also tell you if there's infrastructure-related issues too. If you know anything about the agent settings tab, there's a lot of information. It tells you how they're connected, what they're connected to, whether it's HTTPS, persistent, whatever it might be. Okay? So do the standard things, do your ping, browse to the notification server from that agent, ensure that 443 is enabled and accessible between the agent and the and the internet gateway. Check the time. Time has a critical function here. Make sure your time servers are right. Make sure that the computer outside is the same as at least the internet gateway and your notification server. All right? There's a little bit of a threshold and leeway on that, but it does affect the way it actually does the tunneling. Check the agent settings, the pretty obvious ones. Make sure it's the notification server you expect it to be reporting to. Make sure it's enabled for SSL, right? If it's sitting at HTTP and it can't flip into HTTPS, there's an obvious problem there. Cloud-enabled management does not work on HTTP. Okay, check the logs for errors. So this would be the agent logs right on the log tab, or of course, if you want to suffer, go through the text file, right? And take a look at any references to cloud-enabled management, connecting to, connecting from, any reference to communication between the 3 points. And finally, check the cloud-enabled management policy. So this is the SEM settings policy on the notification server. You can check it. It's the one that obviously shows you what gateways to connect to, as well as a thumbprint and so on. You can see this information at the agent level, right? So in this case here, you just have to go into, I believe it's can't remember if it's the policies. Yeah, the policies area. And it'll show you the cloud-enabled management policy. You can double-click on it, and it'll actually show you all the parameters. Okay, make sure that the thumbprint in that matches the one on your notification server. So it's very general troubleshooting. It's generic. It's not really advanced stuff. A lot of it can be obvious. But here's a couple of scenarios that we've seen. So if the endpoint's connected to the notification server via the internet gateway, but it's unable to register with the NS, typically it's one of the ports is wrong, right? So the cause is literally that the notification server, fully qualified domain name, is set to 443 on the internet gateway instead of 4726. So long story short, the port is wrong, and it should be pretty obvious. Same thing when the endpoint's enabled to retrieve packages from a site server that's internal or external, it's going to be a port thing. It might be set to 443 versus 4726. Okay, so this is a change. If you're from the 7.6 or you've implemented 8.0, in the past we used port 443. Now we use 4726 as a standard for both. Okay, that's as of 8.1, I believe. All right, so if it can't establish connection between to the internet gateway or the notification server, then you can just investigate the typical ways. Go and ping it, do an SLOOKUP, do a telnet at 4726 or 443 in this case, and it'll be some kind of a network issue. Okay, so inventory solution, there's a couple of basic things. Usually what you see in this is policies failing, inventories not running. If it has anything to do with the data reporting, it's usually a database issue or something else. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure the implementation is sound. Make sure that you got the agent plugins out there. That's the most obvious one, and I've been caught with that one. Make sure that the inventory solution policies are on and properly targeted. And then verify that it actually works. So these are kind of obvious things. Inventory works or doesn't in most cases, right? It's no different than anything else that has a sub-agent. Okay, so first things, check your agent or your plugin rollout for inventory. In this case here, you will find that the default is run once ASAP. This one probably has caught everybody here, right? So if you set one of these plugin policies to run once ASAP, and it doesn't have a schedule, it'll try, and it misses the first one. It never runs again, so you never get the plugin out. So our recommendation is give it a schedule. You know, make sure that it gets enforced. Right? So in this case, it would be the compliance. Is it installed? No, then install it. So we would change that setting. That's a common one, where you might have your entire groups have the agent, but some are just sitting there with nothing. Validate your policies. Make sure they actually work. Dig into them. Go into the advanced tab. Go into the selections that you selected for all the different data classes. Okay, make sure they're targeting your desired machines. These are, again, obvious things, but we forget a lot of stuff. Okay, again, as I say, dig deep. If you're wondering why you're not getting files from a certain directory, it's probably missing in there. If you're looking for specific file types and it's not selected, you're not going to get them. Check your run options, right? So if you set a schedule that will expire at a certain time, it'll work for that month or something it's set for, but after that time expires, it never runs it again. Okay. Check for a custom schedule. This is the big one here. Ensure that if there is a custom schedule, it doesn't have that end date I just mentioned. So if it's set to start and end, it'll never run after that point. And it's pretty common to see. Okay, checks applies to or compliance. That's basically saying what is the target? Who is this going to target the policy to? And make sure you run that to update results and you see the affected computer in it. If it's not there, it's not going to get the policies. Okay, so on the endpoint side, you want to see if it's running properly. You will see the inventory items show up in the task if you send a task down to it to collect the full inventory. Check your agent settings tab to ensure that you're getting the proper inventory policy. So you can go into the policies tab if diagnostics is turned on and actually look at the policy, and it'll say, you know, Delta software inventory, it runs at this time, it's perpetual, whatever it might be. So you can dig deep at the agent level. You don't have to just rely on the console. Okay. You can also capture the NSEs on the endpoint. So by standard defaults, it doesn't collect those, right? It basically it'll create an NSE after the inventory and off it goes, right? It goes straight to the NS. So there's a document here that will show you how to pull NSEs and capture them and be able to analyze each one of them. This is especially good if you're missing, you've got invalid or missing information in inventory, right? Something's just not right about what you see in the resource manager. Okay, you can also set this in the registry. So this is under the transport key, and you modify the capture events folder, give it a folder like ctemp or something, and from that moment on, it will dump all the NSE files into the folder you tell it to. And you can analyze each one of them for the data, but there's something more important about it. It will actually save the files in specific naming, right? Prefix and suffix. So you'll see this dump of files in that directory you specified, and if it says NSE, it says the event was sent to the server perfectly, no problems. If it says PSE, it was queued to the event queue of the agent. If it's OK, it says it was sent OK. The blocked means that something happened to it, right? So if you trigger an inventory and you get these .blocked files, you will basically know that there's something wrong with the mechanism. And disabled too, it might be that the NSEs are disabled on the agent side. So this allows you to track and take a look at the NSEs that are being produced. Okay, and then go onto the server side. Obviously, double check the logs. Make sure there's no inventory related entries, no exceptions, no problems, right? Also enable the debug logging, so you see more verbose information about the inventory. You can consult this how-to information document on how to capture them and other diagnostic methods. And then finally, go down to the roles, right? So if there's items that are missing in the data, let's say the service identity that runs the inventory process on your computer, it may not have the rights to even gather that information at the data class level. That's very unlikely, but it has happened. All right. Okay, so software management, we focus, in troubleshooting, we focus on the managed software delivery policy because it is the most, it's the most common item, and it's the one that can show you all parts of software, the software management framework. So I'm going to get right to the areas, the scenarios. Okay, here we go. So endpoint never receives the managed software delivery policy. Okay, so there's a quick method to do it. Go to the agent, press the update button. Check the software management solution licensing. That's the #1 reason why you're not getting your software going, right? You've expired your licenses or you've gone over them. Validate the target on the policy. Check the target on the policy. Do the update list. Ensure that your item is in that targeted list. Pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised. So if the managed software delivery policy never finishes running, so it executes, the policy gets down, it executes, but it doesn't stop, there's usually an obvious reason for it. Most likely in your command line for that package, you didn't do the silent switch or the no UI switch. So what it's doing is it's running under that application identity, and it's in the background somewhere waiting for you to say next, 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 finish, right? That's pretty obvious. So go and check the policy, make sure the appropriate switches are in there. The other way to do it is just run the actual package, go into the software delivery directory on the agent or on the client, and actually execute the executable. If it comes up with something like this, right, with the first screen, you know there's an issue with the policy. And in extreme cases, just restart the semantic management agent and see if it kicks off. It is known to happen from time to time. Okay, the policy returns an error of any kind. Okay, run the command line outside of the policy, right? So take the command line you see in the policy, run it on that local machine. If it gives error 1602, go research it. It's pretty obvious. Go to the vendor site, see what 1602 means. If it's not a critical error, then go back into the policy and put in the success code or failure code so it'll continue. So this is just troubleshooting. We found an error. It's stopping the process. I found out that code is okay. It doesn't mean anything. And I can put it in here and prevent it from happening. Policies that are scheduled but do not execute. Okay, so again, check if the schedule has been applied in the past. Right, so go right down to the agent, look at the item in the software delivery tab, and see if it ran before. Because some of these are set not to run again. It's run once only, right? ASAP. So, okay, check the advanced options. Look for the obvious things I mentioned before. End dates, if it has a start and an end date, it could be after that date. It'll never run ever, ever, right? And also check that if there's other policies queued up. So in some cases, you might have 6 or 7 software delivery policies going, and it just hasn't run yet. Okay, download issues. Policy never executes due to package download issues. This is totally related to really the package server itself. So most likely on your package server, you got an invalid, or you have a not ready package in that case. Yep. Yep, that's a huge one too. Right? And these are obvious ones. Make sure that the file is on the local machine. Double check the policy itself. Take a look at permissions to see if you actually have access to it or the identity has the access to execute. Okay. If there's a custom package destination set, make sure it's there. If you said put the files in C temp, make sure they've shown up. Check the package on the server. So go to the package server and actually see that it's ready, that it's actually in the repository. Right? If it's not in a ready state, take a look at a couple of other things. Do an update configuration, kind of jolt it into receiving that package, right? Refresh your packages, resend all status, the typical cycle. And if that still fails it, then you're probably troubleshooting a package server at this point. Okay, check the agent code bases. So you got the you got the policy. Double click on the actual item inside the software delivery tab, and what you'll see is no code bases, right? Well, no code bases will tell you that it's not receiving that information to say where to download the packages from. Okay. All right, so if you do see blank code bases, this is where you kind of go back and look at the package server troubleshooting, right? All right, might skip this one for now. Would you rather see asset management or patch management? Asset or patch? Asset, hands. Patch. Okay. All right, here we go. Good old patch. So just so you know, patch management is very similar to software management troubleshooting, right? We're dealing with packages and policies and so on, right? So I'll skip through some of the common areas. So in this case here, you know, we've enabled a policy. It either didn't get the policy, or it didn't get the package, or it won't execute it, or the reports are inaccessible or not accurate. So first things first, check the licensing. Again, we will not remediate any patch if you don't have sufficient licensing. Okay, make sure they're valid, make sure they're current. Check the download, right? So check the package servers that they received that KB or that Linux update or whatever it might be. It's got to be on the package server to be served. Okay, make sure that there's at least 500 megs of free space on your package server, right? As soon as it hits 500, everything stops, right? Because it's going to get in a situation where it can't load any of them. Okay, check the base patch management policies. Go into the specific policies, or a bunch of them if you're having a major issue, and check every single detail. Make sure the targets are right. Make sure that the compliance and the remediation settings are right. Schedules. Okay, then look at see if the endpoint is ignoring the update schedule. So if you know it happens at 3 a.m. every day and you go into the agent after that time and it doesn't show that it executed, that's when you have to investigate at the agent side. Okay, so check if an endpoint is missing a patch inventory. So it may be a situation where it never ran a vulnerability scan ever, or it hasn't yet. It's a brand new machine. In some cases, be patient, but you can also check this log called the SD patch assessment log, and it will show you certain errors in the process. All right, so on if the endpoint fails to be targeted by the software update policy, in most cases, check and make sure it truly is vulnerable, that it ran a recent vulnerability scan, and it's in the report that shows it needs a patch. That's the obvious one. Then look at the patch remediation settings and ensure that it has at least one client targeted. If this is 0, the policy won't run. Okay, so it has to have at least one targeted endpoint. Okay, if it fails to download the software updates, we're starting to deal with some pretty obvious stuff at this point, right? So we're going to go and we're going to troubleshoot the agent to site server communications, make sure they're talking. Check the patch remediation settings policy again, right? Make sure that it's set properly. Ensure that the delete package after setting is not set to 0 days. If you ever set it to that, it gets the patch and then it disappears, right? Always make sure it's greater than 0. Okay, make sure the package distribution settings are totally in order. Check your package servers, go back to the site, go back to the NS, look at all your site management settings, ensure everything's green. If it fails to install on the endpoint, this one gets a little more detailed into possible problems with the package rules behind the scenes. It's unlikely in most cases. I've probably only seen it a few times in years of using this. Okay, so if there's discrepancies in the reports, basically you can check off a setting in the policy called send additional status events for software update policies. By doing that, it'll resolve most discrepancies where you're looking at vulnerability reports and it's basically not showing your machine that you know just got patched, you know that you updated it or did an update config. Okay, see if a reboot's required at this point, right? So you may have old stale data, but the problem is it hasn't rebooted to say, I'm done the process. And compare the resource manager with the compliance report. Get the compliance report on that doesn't show your endpoint, and then go and look at the resource manager of that endpoint, compare that data class together. One's going to be different, right? Okay, so it'll point out exactly what the patch was and what the machine was, and any discrepancies. All right. So the only major thing I need to show you is remember this site. Okay, so this is our education site. This course is available, as I say, instructor-led for 2 days, and it also has 4 lessons, exactly the way they're formatted here, and about 6 hours of videos. So this is where you can get a lot more information And yes, every single word is covered. It's not been squished up for you. And that's what I have for today. Thank you so much. Any questions? Sorry. I was thinking. Do we have time? Any questions? Sorry. Way down. Here we go. There, Jim.
We're good. On the RAD tool, I noticed that it's on 7.6. Is there any plans to upgrade the RAD tool to 8.5?
Mike can tell you that. What are the plans for the RAD tool and the upgrades?
I believe the version of the tool is 7.6, but it does support 8.0, 8.1, and 8.5.
Right.
I think it's just that the tool itself has not been required to be updated, but it still supports 8.1, 8.5, 8.0.
And many of the features.
Yep.
Right. Have you come across anything that doesn't work in 8.1 or 8.5?
No, I haven't run into any issues with that, but I just was curious because every time you see when you have an update, that's still far behind. I don't know if you guys are going to try to level set it like you would do for the other application.
Okay. I don't think it's on an update cycle with the products itself, right? Basically. And it's kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? It works. Right? Okay. Anybody else? Way down there? I think I'm the one that should be running around. All this lunch.
So on cloud-enabled management and connecting it to a package server, site server, package server, you mentioned it's a new port from CEM to task server, or excuse me, package server. It's not 443, it's 4726, just like the NS head.
Exactly.
So what configures that listener on the site server? Just traditionally speaking, if I stand up a package server and I serve up HTTPS code bases, it's listening on 443.
Right.
Do I need to go in and bind 4726 to alongside of 443 in IIS Manager?
No, you should not. No. And that's why you have the force overwrite checkbox on the policy for the site server.
Okay.
Okay, so if you enable that, there's a SEM setting section in the policy for the site server, or even in global site servers, and it will force overwrite it from 443, what you might have had already configured, and set it to 4726.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and remember, the 4726 is for the cloud-enabled management connectivity, get you through the port, right?
Yeah.
443 and other traffic is a standard NS traffic. You're going to get your packages on 443.
Okay.
Right? So it's all that
It's kind of a
communication in the
control
there's two
channel.
levels, right?
Okay. It's a control channel. 443 is still serving up the code bases.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, if we did it the other way, that would be a mess. That would not be fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not specifically related to troubleshooting, but one thing you brought up related to CEM, you said in RU1 for 8.5 is when the new CEM is coming out. So if we upgrade to 8.5 and want to use the WebSockets, is there a consideration we should put in there because
Right,
it's still
something
limited?
to prep for it. Now, the Internet Gateway upgrade is for the Internet. It's the Internet Gateway, not necessarily the SEM functionality in SMP, right? It's going from Apache to the new .NET Core. Is this RU1?
I didn't quite catch the whole
So
question.
with the way it was mentioned yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
with the Internet Gateway from Apache was limited in terms of number of clients, and that's the reason it was changed to the new one because of the constant communication with the web ports. I
There were a
believe
few
you said Apache did not have that functionality, so that was needed to be changed. So what you said is that functionality is not coming until RU1.
Well, functionality is there.
Oh, is it
So
today?
with 8.5, so with the launch of 8.5, CEM has been updated in more ways than one, right? So
Okay.
you have the gateway component, which was rebuilt on top of Open.NET, right?
Okay, that's what confused me
So
'cause the
scalability
spreadsheet-
Yeah,
goes
my
from-
apologies, guys.
Scalability
It
goes
is
from
released.
3,000, 3,500 endpoints per. Remember,
Okay.
connections are not persistent. So they come in, check in, and if they don't have anything they go out, they disconnect, and that channel is open for another client. So it's up to 3,000, 3,500 concurrent connections, and they're not persistent. Now with the Open.net, we went down 15,000. I would say that would be probably my guidance, but it will be 15 to 20,000 possibly with the use of the new technology. That's from the cloud-enabled management gateway layer. Now, with the addition of that gateway and changes on cloud-enabled management, that the other change that was made was to allow for the WebSocket connection to work through the gateway. So now you can have that persisting connection, that heartbeat open to the agent regardless of what it is, even through the gateway.
Where I was confused because I think the
So-
slide said it was RU1.
Yeah, mine said RU1. I did not know it was in release.
So
My
I
apologies.
didn't catch that. So.
I will fix that right now. But in the long story short on the internet gateway is when you do the upgrade of ITMS whatever 8.1 to so and so, it transparently upgrades the internet gateway.
Yep.
Right. And there's no changes to your standard ports, your settings. Nothing changes. It's just the engine. We took out the engine and put a Corvette one in. Right.
Correct.
All right. All right. In the effort of time, come and ask me questions if you got them. And I know it's Rob's turn.
To learn more, visit go.symantec.com/manage.